Right, team, welcome back. We are heading into our next session. So while we do that, I'm going to go ahead and have everybody be a co-host. So let's all go ahead and welcome Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Hello.
We're going to
Okay.
go ahead. Hold on, Nathan. I'm going to welcome
Yep.
everybody real quick.
Yep.
We're going to bring Jen in. Hi, Jen. So good to see you. We have Noah. Good morning, Noah.
Hey
So
everyone.
good to see you, Noah. We've got Kat. Hi, Kat. Good morning. And we have Paul. And I'm so excited. We have an sign language interpreter for this session. So I'm going to go ahead and get them added. And then Nathan, take it away.
Thank you, Greer. So, hi everyone. My name is Nathan Chung. My pronouns are he, him. I'm an Asian male wearing a gray long sleeve shirt and glasses, and honored to be here with all of you at today's Rethink Ability Summit. Note that captions and ASL are available for this session. As someone who spent years working at the intersection of technology and inclusion, I've seen how a single barrier or a single thoughtful design can change a life. Accessibility isn't a bonus feature, it's the foundation for participation and belonging. When we design environments, technologies, and policies that work for disabled people, we create spaces where everyone can contribute, connect, and thrive. When we center accessibility, we're not just helping others, we're designing a future that includes us all. And that spirit, and with that spirit of inclusion, it brings me to our next speaker, someone whose work truly embodies that vision. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Smith.
Hello. How is everyone today? Can somebody give me a yes or a no and let me know if my screen is sharing and I can be heard?
Yes, it is.
Great, fabulous. So I'm going to dive right into this because I have plenty of content to share. I could easily take up probably a whole day's worth of time. But I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jen Smith. I'm a white lady. I have rosy cheeks. I'm wearing dark rimmed glasses. I have long, straight hair. It's more silver and white now than brown. And it highlights that I'm sneaking up on being 50 years old very soon. I do have a day job with a familiar global company, but know that today I am here on my own accord, so the information and details I share are not held by the company I work for necessarily. For questions you have, please do add them into this chat, and we'll work to see what we can answer in the discussion section as well, or follow up afterwards with an answer in the Slack channel. So I want to highlight today the topic of reframing average, go into some accessibility basics, talk about people over compliance, and then highlight some accessible top three items. So I want to start with a story to help build a shared approach to the topic and reframe the word, quote, average, unquote. So in the late 40s, early 50s, the US Air Force had a huge major life or death problem on its hands, and that problem was not getting any better regardless of their approach. So in February 1950 alone, there were nearly 200 plane accidents. Planes like the F-51D Mustang that I have shown here in a black and white photo on the slide. And then there's also a photo of the cockpit of that Mustang taken over the shoulder of a pilot. So researchers at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base launched an investigation, and they were trying to figure out why the accidents were happening. The first instinct, pin the blame on the pilots because the engineers could prove that the vast majority of the accidents were not plane malfunctions. But the pilots were also really baffled. They followed their best in class training and they could also verify it. So they combed through tons of reports and data. And then researchers decided to focus on the cockpit. And that cockpit was crafted in 1926 to perfectly match the average of hundreds of pilots at that time. So on the left of this next screen is a black and white picture of a B-29 cockpit at the time. It has dozens of levers and switches and gauges, but everything is really rigid. It's binary, off, on, yes, no. And then in thinking through a new design of this cockpit, researchers figured, well, pilots have probably changed since 1926. So they naturally did what most of us would do. They expanded their data. They wanted to study more than 4,000 pilots, which was the largest number to date. And almost everyone thought new measurements, more pilots, more dimensions equals the next perfect cockpit. And we're going to fix that problem. So now we bring in Lieutenant Gilbert Daniels. The picture I have here is him later in his life with gray hair and a beard, receding hairline, but still very dapper in a suit and tie. And at the time of the study, he was a fresh recruit in the Air Force and a junior researcher. He was assigned to help measure all of those pilots in 10 dimensions. And as Daniels crunched his numbers, he wondered, well, how many pilots actually fit this average of the measurements? And almost everyone surprised the answer was zero. The snippet of Lieutenant Daniels' report shows data where, in stature alone, the pilots who fit the average was immediately cut by almost 75%. And it went from 4,063 pilots down to 1,055. And the numbers continue to decrease from there in every dimension. And then when you get down to the end of the list, there were two folks who made it through the previous 9 measures. Then you look at the last dimension, and those two also failed to meet the average. So to be sure of the calculations, they expanded their research, more measurements, and they wanted to dig into the sheer range of differences in what was, at the time, a very homogenous group of people who already had to meet specific standards to become pilots in the Air Force. Remember, this was the late 40s, early 50s. So the information became the spark to guide the Air Force, and the Air Force created adjustable cockpits. Those cockpits can be customized to fit each pilot and solve a multi-dimensional problem. And by the way, if you want to learn more, check out the book End of Average by Todd Rose, and he highlights all of the ways that average, quote unquote, or normal, quote unquote, can fail us all. So this is a place I could kind of bore you all with usual statistics we see in articles and presentations, but I'm not going to do that. I want to talk about how we're constantly asked to do more with less. And in that space of scarcity, we're taking shortcuts to focus on what people think of as, and every time I say average or normal, it's in quotes because I'm telling you there is no average or normal. But as we zoom in and we notice our differences, we realize that in doing this, um, we're leaving out more people than we include when we take this approach. And I can't overstate the fact that making quality experiences and products means we make them accessible. And it means that we're breaking down barriers and keeping everyone more secure, their information private in the process. In this era, access to agency in all these digital spaces is just as crucial as our physical spaces. And a lot of business owners, higher ups, tend to wave off the risk of exclusion and lawsuits because settle amounts may not always be huge. And they become the price of doing business. But what is not figured into that price is the logistic and operational costs to merely get to that point of settlement, not to mention the disruption in the ability to focus on other work and innovations. So some companies are trying to address accessibility with plugins or widgets that tout the latest and greatest of AI, which those tend to be band-aid fixes that don't address the deeper issues. These are ineffective solutions, and they can leave businesses exposed not only to litigation at multiple jurisdictional levels, but also to cyber attacks. For example, in 2019, there is an accessibility overlay company called Nagitch, and they were hacked using a JavaScript vulnerability that defaced around 1 million pages on thousands of sites. And many of those sites had global brand recognition. So those AI widgets are a prime example of people designing for people with disabilities or for large companies instead of designing with and by people with disabilities. They leave humans out of the loop, and they tend to group people with disabilities into boxes, if you will, without understanding the complex undercurrent of the human experience. The best AI solutions empower humans and enhance capability, and they don't just paper over broken experiences. So let's highlight some basics of digital accessibility. The first thing I want to call out is that in its simplest form, digital accessibility provides structure, similar to how search engines help organize the unstructured web. Good search and even good AI both compile information and share it back with us in a way that we can understand and interact with. Assistive technologies empower the same thing so that people have access regardless of their ability or their disability. So in the screenshot here, I have the W3C's website for Web Accessibility Initiative, and I highlight underlying headings in the code that users employed to build a mental model of the page's structure and the relationships that align with the visual presentation we get. There's no fancy features to turn on, nothing extra to download. It's just there in the code from the start. And that structure also gives people agency to explore the page they want to. Whether they're new to the site, they might want to explore it all piece by piece, or they may know precisely exactly where they want to go and the fastest way to get there. And in the digital accessibility world, like others, we have standards. Ours are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. They're called WCAG. And those principles fall into sections around making experiences perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And while not perfect, the guidelines do serve as a reference point for many, many global laws and acts that require equal digital access. And as the slide shows, there's a through line of permanent, temporary, and situational issues that all humans deal with around touch, sight, speech, hearing, and even more. So, for example, with hearing, where all three would benefit from captions, whether someone is deaf with a permanent disability, they have an ear infection and it's temporary, or it's a situational limitation and they're working in a loud environment. This solution for one extends to many, but not to all. Remember, there's no one size fits all. So agility in these digital experiences of ones and zeros take that binary code and then creatively adapt it for complex worlds of different people. But the lack of flexibility, the lack of options, and clear communication are what lead to things like security breaches caused by skill-based errors, decision-based errors. For example, Verizon in 2024, they had a data breach investigations report, and that report highlights that non-malicious human elements are the most common threat and cause 68% of security breaches. So, building in this flexibility, it gives people that word agency that I've used a lot to use things in a way they understand and they have control over. And without that, people are stuck using really rigid experiences that reduce them to a single nameless data point, a data point that doesn't fit the human experience or the environment at all the ways that humans interact with it. So, in this, now I want to explore some people and stories that can help bridge our understanding and help us learn to build adaptable experiences that put humans first. These can help us learn where best practices and standards meet, regardless of what role you have or your job. And know that the people I highlight here, they're anonymized, they're kind of amalgamated stories of real people, people I know, I work with, I'm friends with, and I fiercely respect. So we're going to start with Jorge, who's 21, living in Atlanta and going to Georgia Tech in their School of Cybersecurity and Privacy. Jorge loves making jewelry. He's an avid reader and really digs fantasy novels. And he plays a sport called goalball every Saturday. And if you haven't looked at that, look it up. It's really amazing. It is a Paralympic sport. Anyway, Jorge has a concern that since he's been blind since birth, he's been excelling in computer engineering, but he's facing more hurdles as his courses get harder. And a lot of the tools really don't work for his assistive technology called JAWS. He understands different types of AI and he finds some of them helpful, but it isn't helpful when it flatters him or makes assumptions about what he needs to do and takes over for him. On his journey, the tools are getting less accessible, like I mentioned, and he worries that he's going to have to leave the field like others have, but he has heard of people successfully getting jobs and working through the problems. He's passionate about his field and he hopes that new AI computer vision models can bridge gaps by helping him access data visualizations, plus the ability to dig into numbers. And in his struggles, again, those inaccessible tools means he's either asking for help, he's spending extra time catching up to his classmates, or he's hacking a solution, sometimes with AI. But when things are accessible, he's often more efficient in working through his assignments than his cohorts. And Jorge's motivation is that he's got a full ride scholarship and he's super excited to be in Atlanta. He grew up in a small town in Montana. And has a lot of fresh ideas to bring and solving complex cybersecurity issues. He has unique experiences that make him an asset to his industry with novel ideas for using emerging AI tools along with tried and true software. Next, we're going to meet Preeti. She's 35 in Adelaide, Australia, and she's a new manager of an AI tooling team. And Preeti likes to explore new cities and food with her partner and friends. She's leading a team of 5 developers, and she's prepping for her first show as an amateur photographer. So Preeti's concern is that she had an accident and her dominant left elbow is sprained. So she's only using a keyboard now. Sometimes she uses a mouse if she has to. Also, Preeti was diagnosed with a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, or RP, a progressive eye disease, and is traveling the world before she completely loses her vision. Right now, her eyes are getting tired quickly, and she notices her field of vision narrowing. On Preeti's journey, she's working on a high stakes project and it needs authentication every 15 minutes. She has to re sign in. And she's tempted to go around security to prevent frequent logouts. But she's a professional. She's not going to compromise her credentials with a hack. And she just wants solutions that work, that help reduce eye strain, keep up with her productivity. And while she did share her temporary injury with her coworkers, she has not shared her other eye condition. The innovation project from Preeti's team has huge potential as a commercial product. And with her injury and vision issues, she's truly realizing how many tools rely on a mouse and good vision. Some aren't flexible enough to even adjust to dark mode or increased font sizes that she uses. Also, she's slow while using her non-dominant right hand right now if she's forced to use a mouse. Preeti's motivation is that she wants to make the most of being a new manager. Proving her skills with this high visibility tool could get her noticed, but failure could also mean lost opportunities. And she feels like if colleagues know about her RP, they're going to think less of her and her capabilities. Preeti is weighing the difficult decision to tell her coworkers or continue working harder to keep her disability quiet. Mo is 47. He lives in Warsaw, Poland, and he's a senior VP of sales at a tech giant. Mo loves skiing so much that he taught his dog to ski. He loves playing drums, cares for his aging parents, and is multilingual, speaking 4 languages. Mo's concern is that he has multiple sclerosis, which is a disease that impacts the protective covering of nerves. His symptoms flare up, they recede, but they're progressing more with fewer breaks. He frequently experiences brain fog, and sometimes he's so weak he has a hard time walking. Mo is also sandwiched between caring for his kids and his parents. And on his journey, Mo has spotty Wi Fi with frequent travel, and it makes online work slow and harder. He mostly relies on his phone because it adapts to his ever changing abilities, not to mention his changing environments. He avoids trying new digital tools like AI because it's just one more thing to manage. And when he debugs an issue for his kids or parents, he's tempted to cut corners and bend the rules because of the complexity. And Mo wastes a lot of time working in tools not meant for a phone, but sometimes it's his only choice. It's clear the company built the tools for a desktop to work in an office with good Wi-Fi. Also, every app he uses has different policies and interfaces that send him in circles. Mo is, like I said, a frequent traveler, and that travel is more taxing now, leading to longer, more severe flare ups, like I mentioned. Mo wants to stay as productive as possible with his work. Some people know about his MS, like family and a few colleagues, but they tend to forget because Mo looks so healthy. He's frustrated by being the family IT guy, and he really wants to find a place to manage his family safety online while also giving them control. Finally, we'll meet Andy, who's 63, living in Boston, and a newly retired CEO of a regional retailer. She really loves her new hobbies, paddleboarding and gardening. She's adjusting to life without help for all her digital logistics. She digs the latest tech gadgets, and she's dabbling in gaming with her grandkids. So Andy's concern, she's really a proud cancer survivor. That's not a concern. But retirement has given a fresh new lease on life, despite her hearing not being as sharp as it used to be and her missing out on conversations. She's also developed tremors in her hands and fatigue that reminds her of chemo brain from 20 years ago. On Andy's journey, she's really saved well for retirement. She can afford to hire support in the form of a local college student, and she's using ChatGPT and other tools to keep her updated on the latest technology. And he's also excited about AI captioning conversations. Even though she's found that some of the tools make bad or funny mistakes, she has found the ones that work better and keep her in the know during the conversation. And Andy struggles. She's not used to the complexity of managing her online accounts. So, whether it's sharing files, joining meetings, a chat, or even sending an email, it all takes her so much longer. Just when she's figured it out, the interface changes again, or things are too small to click without making mistakes. Andy's motivation is that in retirement, she wants to stay current and she wants to contribute to the community. She just joined the board of her favorite nonprofit, helps kids learn about tech and business, share files and agendas. They also chat in an app to talk outside of meetings. And he's really optimistic that new AI tools can help her with innovative ideas. So now let's take these folks through three examples and hear from them to learn how we can build forms and error messaging, interaction, and perceptive experience with flexibility and adaptability. And accessibility is often what I dub the canary in the coal mine. So when it is not part of making something, whether digital or physical or systemic, it highlights everything from communication breakdowns, inadequate planning, or people being overworked and moving too quickly. These are the things folks forget when relying on assumptions of what, again, they consider, quote, normal or average, unquote. So I've got forms and errors here with an example of pass and fail. The good form gives people feedback about where they are, what's happening. And some of these may seem familiar to folks. So for the pass part of the form, there's on-screen labels that are also in the code. And the fail version kind of has a label, but it's something called placeholder text, which is really hard to read, and it disappears when you put your cursor in the field. So somebody could get distracted when filling in a form, or maybe they can't see well, or there's bad lighting, and that design creates barriers in getting that goal accomplished. For the username field, also the pass option clearly tells me what I can add. I can add an email or a username. The fail version is really vague. So in a time where every login seems different, the pass example lets people know in advance what to add and the limitations without having to click through a tooltip or repeatedly learn through failure and potentially block their account. And none of this is like massively failing any security breaches. It's not telling people exactly what to fix or what their username or password should be. Another difference between the example is that users can quickly find which parts of the form are required. The info on the screen is in the code and it's part of the visible label. And this helps people succeed in advance by knowing what they have to provide where, so they don't go in circles submitting a form with errors. And finally, speaking of errors, there's this second field for the phone and it has an error. I put an equal sign in the phone number. And the pass shows where the problem is and how to fix it. Um, and not only is there bold red highlight around the form field itself, but it also has instructions telling me how to fix the problem. So if I can't see or perceive the color red, I still know what's going on. The fail version uses a barely perceivable thin red line, and there's a box at the top of the form telling me I need to fix errors because it's too generic for me to know what is wrong. Do I need to maybe have my phone number as only numbers? Or maybe I need to add a country code, like what's happening here? So Jorge says, if I had a dime for every inaccessible form, I could have my own startup. When I navigate a form with my screen reader and hear editable, I know I need to inspect the code or to get hints from the text around it. JAWS is using AI to help out more, but it still isn't always correct. It just slows me down as I keep retrying until the form goes through. Preeti says, I need clear instructions and obvious changes when I mess up so I know what to fix and how. It's so nice when things just work with my settings so I don't have to hack them. Also, I'm faster on my keyboard and it bugs me when I can't use it or can't use autofill for my passwords. With this injury, typing too much or using a mouse is literally a pain. Mo adds that I hate trying to fill in forms with disappearing text. A lot of times I get interrupted and lose track of where I was. When the text is gone, I need reminding about what that piece of the form is for. Also, when my eyes are tired, I adjust the text size and several apps don't change, so I have to pinch and zoom to read. Finally, Andy adds, I'm a bad typist, plus worse with my shaky hands. It's not getting any better. My phone isn't better because the keyboard is so small. People tell me to use the microphone instead, but I have a thick accent and it doesn't understand me. I try to do the bare minimum to get through the task. Next, we're going to move on to interaction, and there can be loads of barriers here. If an experience isn't predictable, people guess, often incorrectly, about what to do and how to proceed. Some people leave, some might take a risk of trial and error, and finally, others may voluntarily compromise their information to get help and accomplish their goal. The flexible options are consistent in things like how buttons and links are named. In addition to making those buttons comfortably sized so I can click or touch them without making a mistake. Also, they sparingly use pop-ups or panels, and they're adaptable to the ways of using pre-existing logins or biometrics to reduce complexity. Compare those to the rigid options. There's something on here that's a CAPTCHA that's called Chihuahua or Muffin, and it relies on people being able to see really well to pick out the difference. I don't know about you, but I kind of have a panic attack every time I see one of these things because I think I'm going to get locked out. I'm going to have to start over. Oh my gosh. And I kind of devolve into chaos when I'm trying to use these things. There's also tiny buttons in the fail example that require precise ability to touch or click. And then you add the frustration of examples of layers of pop-ups or labels of different options that are kind of the same, but not quite, like with this mail application. You've got mail new, Outlook new, new. What's the difference? Which one was I using before? So our digital worlds are filled with these unexpected issues, and they can be maddening on any given day. But when you add in changing abilities, they leave people on a spectrum of enraged to helpless. And so now the feedback here that we're going to hear from our folks reinforces a study called Human-Centered Authentication Guidelines from Jeremiah Still, Ashley Kane, and David Schuster. The study points out that understanding the cognitive load on users and lessening it reduces frustration and failure rates. So Jorge says whether it's an image-only CAPTCHA, buttons that are only pictures, or a tangled nest of modals, there are countless ways I can tell no one thought through beyond users who can see and use a mouse. I appreciate consistency and predictability. Preeti says one of my favorite games makes me slide a puzzle piece into place to confirm I'm human. I haven't played it since my injury because it doesn't work with a keyboard. For work, I like single sign-on. I also like work apps that give me clear instructions on what to do. Jargon makes it hard for me to know what's expected. Mo adds, my work accounts use an image captcha. It's so small on my phone, I can't see the images. I wish they used my phone's biometrics instead. Even once I'm in the site, there are lots of buttons and links that are too small to tap without making mistakes, and those slow me down to fix them. Andy adds, my tremors make lots of things hard. When I mess up on my login, I get locked out. Thank goodness I write everything in my password book. When I get lost or frustrated, I ask for help and hand over my login details. I've seen more sites ask me to set up a passcode or something. I skip it because I don't know what that means. And Andy tends to be our cautionary tale. Finally, we're getting into perception and wrapping it up. When we talk about this, these are examples where folks might be trying to be clever with the design, like the ancient scroll icon, instead of using a document icon with the label of print to tell people what this thing is. Or they might make some assumptions that if they know what it means when they're building the product, so will their user. The unclear star rating here is an example, and it lacks clarity to know how many stars something has compared to the other version, which is clear that there's 4 out of 5 stars. But some examples here are more pervasive and worse. There's a click here link with text that's too light to read, so you aren't clear what this thing does, where's it going to take me, compared to a clear example of a registration link, which it's easier to read and understand. Finally, an example of a more deceptive pattern is used if people try to cancel something or leave a service. The buttons don't look active, and the text is once again hard to read. In contrast is the clear cancel button and unsubscribe option that gets a clear hover and focus indicator whether I'm using a mouse or a keyboard. Go to the site deceptive.design, and it has a lot of examples of trick wording or fake urgency, and all of those have a toll on the customer and the long-term trust of brands when being online. So I'm about to wrap it up. We're going to hear from Jorge, who says, I can tell when there are things that my keyboard skips. When a page is cluttered with click here links or buy now buttons, I have to slow down and really read through everything to get context. Then I can mostly learn which things do what. And when it comes to account management, going through dozens of extra steps to opt out is hard. Preeti adds, I use dark mode and some sites don't adjust, which makes some tasks difficult. What really frustrates me is when I can't tell what is interactive and not. I don't want to spend time rolling my mouse over everything to watch and see when the pointer changes since my keyboard is faster. Mo says my brain fog and travel exhaustion plus really weird lighting situations add to my stress in getting things done online. Apps always change and it feels like the new designs aren't for me. I find a lot of the buttons or forms that look broken, and when I tap them to see what they do, nothing happens. Not sure if I did something wrong or what. Finally, Andy adds, I try to figure things out on my own. Sometimes I'm at the mercy of others, so I'm glad I can count on my student to give over my info and passwords. Technology can be fun, but it seems like a lot is overly complicated now. For example, forget about unsubscribing or canceling something after I've accidentally subscribed. So, in summary, think back to the opening story about the Air Force. Remember that it was the customization and the adaptability that allowed for them to be more responsive in a really fast paced, dangerous environment because there was no one size fits all. That same situation holds true today in our digital world. When we build for the human differences we all have, we can help reduce threats, frustration, and burdens. And these rigid approaches to complex problems create just as many issues as they fix. We serve people. Our solutions have to dovetail with human nature and abilities instead of considering them flaws, exclamation point. And adaptability creates robust, innovative experiences. So let's get into the conversation. Noah, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hey, Noah, before you get
Thanks.
started, this is Greer. Um, just wanted to call out to our interpreter, Roger. It's quite dark in your screen. If you could turn on a light or get some light, that would be great so that Paul can see you for this part of the session. Thank you. Go ahead, Noah.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, this is Noah. Thanks, Jen. Great presentation. And yeah, I liked how you brought in those stories of actual people with disabilities because it's important not to forget them. We're going to do a bit more of that in the second half of the session where we're going to have a panel discussion that brings together people with a variety of experiences who have all been impacted by disability. We'll do our best to say our name before we're speaking and be mindful, myself especially, to try and speak slowly for the interpreter and the captioner. And there may be short pauses between when people ask questions and give answers. So we're just giving everyone enough time to read the captions or interpreter signs. So before giving everyone a chance to introduce themselves, I'm going to go over the agenda. We're going to have a conversation here about how workplace tools have impacted people with disabilities. We're going to share from different perspectives, sometimes from the employee side, sometimes from the management side. And we're going to talk about what managers can do better and discuss some of the real challenges that we face with accessibility in the workplace. And if time allows, we can also chat a bit about security and artificial intelligence. So if anyone has a question, just drop it into the chat. I'll be monitoring as we go. If we don't end up getting to your question, we're going to copy everything from the chat after, so we'll be able to send out a written response. So So since I'm already talking, I'll start with my own intro, and then I'll turn it over to our panelists. So my name is Noah. My pronouns are he, him. I'm have darkish skin with dark brown hair. I am one of the co-founders of EasySurf. That's a digital accessibility consultancy. And I've also got a disability. I'm someone who uses speech recognition software in a professional setting. So I'll turn it over to the rest of our panel. So we're going to start with Jen and then Kat and then Paul. So if you can just introduce yourself with a little bit about you and the accessibility tools, a little bit of, with your name, a little bit about what you like to work on and some of the accessibility tools that help you in a professional setting.
Yeah, so you've heard a lot from me, Jen Smith. I focus on digital accessibility for employees and clients. And one of the accessibility tools that I wanted to highlight that helped me tremendously is something called Read Aloud. I use it online in documents, email, and it helps me focus and it helps me retain information better than just silently reading. It also helps me proofread my content.
Great, thanks. Paul, you're up. Sorry, and I got the order mixed up there, but Paul and then Kat.
Okay. Thank you for having me. My name is Paul. I am profoundly deaf. I'm very blue so and have brown hair, blue eyes. I have a hearing. I'm from Taylor. I try to help educate and inform people and people call the space from a deaf person per love or experience. I use AI to help me communicate and get information in the world, but it's not perfect. Please remember AICC is not reasonable accommodation yet. Cause studies in the last 3 days is reasonable accommodation because it's inputted by a human. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kat Cantillo. My pronouns are she/they, used interchangeably. I'm proudly autistic, neurodivergent, and disabled. I also have multiple autoimmune chronic illnesses. I'm a white non-binary person with blue eyes, rainbow glasses. I have what I learned in the 90s was called dirty blonde hair, but is more like brown. Curly hair that frames my face just above my shoulders, and I'm wearing a red shirt from Claiming Disability about accessibility creates real inclusion. I'm also wearing giant black noise canceling over the ear headphones. I'm a physical and digital accessibility consultant, public speaker, and artist. I'm really passionate about designing experiences and systems that merge accessibility, education, creativity, and lived experience. As for an accessibility tool that helps me in a professional setting, I actually have three. Flexible work schedule, my noise canceling headphones that I'm currently wearing, and outline notes for speaking engagements like today. Together, they help me manage what I can control, which is, helps my focus, my comfort, and my sensory input while adapting to the things that, again, I said I can't control. So one thing I just want to leave off with my introduction is that sometimes accessibility tools don't cost anything for employers. My headphones are mine. Nobody bought them. I purchased them for myself. And not just for work, but for everyday life, I use them to regulate sensory input. So they help me focus and they make overwhelming environments more manageable. Thank you.
All right, well, we're getting a lot of love for noise canceling headphones in the chat. So I think a lot of people agree with you on that one. We're going to all share a little bit, a couple of stories about how, we've been impacted in the workplace because of accessibility tools. I'll share a really quick one myself because I use speech recognition software. And in a previous job I had, this was kind of when I acquired a disability and was just discovering things for the first time. And I had a lot of pain in my hands and was unable to type or use a mouse. I requested a Dragon, which is a speech recognition software, and it took about 4 months to get it because of the amount of security issues that were raised. And so that was really challenging. And I will say in that interim 4-month period, I essentially just brought my own laptop and was using Dragon on the side, which probably was also not the most secure, but that was the only choice I had. So I'm going to turn it over to our panel. We're going to start with Jen and then Kat and then Paul. And the question really is just if you could share a little bit about an accessibility tool that's impacted your work.
Yeah, so this is Jen, and I'll try to keep it brief. So one of my preferred tools was blocked by IT when I onboarded into a new company. It really slowed me down. And I was lucky enough to actually find the right person on our tech team that helped scratch below the surface to know it was really just a matter of downloading the right language package to enable the feature. And then we worked together so to find the right people in IT with his higher ups to talk about how we need to enable that for all the employees. And I do tend to wonder then if I didn't have the title I did behind my name, if my concern would have been taken as seriously. But I still want to celebrate, the win and the extended capability to everybody. But I'm really excited to hear from Paul and Kat about this too.
My turn?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead,
sorry.
Kat.
This is Kat speaking. So I had many stories to say, but I think the one that I will share is something that happened a few years ago. Um, I needed closed captions or something. At the time, I had no idea what it really looked like for me, and I had requested help, just accommodations. There was no HR at the time at the company since it was a small startup. And I just said, "Hey, I'm left out. I have no idea what's going on in these meetings. I am sick and tired of reaching out to people to go, can I have a summary? What was talked about in the meeting? Is there anything I need to know that I need to move on with from this meeting?" And I knew that it came out like, oh, you weren't paying attention or you weren't there or something. But in reality, I was there. I tried to read lips. I am not deaf, but I have central auditory processing disorder. And since I was younger, I've read lips. And so I try to grab as much information as possible. But when multiple people are talking, everything's going on, there's information or words that I don't even know about. I just kind of sit there like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. I'm too overwhelmed. So with my requests, I just said, could I have some sort of even just notes of the meeting? I was literally just trying to figure out something that could help me as soon as possible. Eventually, we did have HR, and it wasn't a very good HR person. And I said, hey, I need help. I still need help. It's been months. I have no idea what's going on in these meetings. And so one thing led to another. HR was no longer there, and another person got rehired for the position, and they helped me figure out what the steps were. But just like Noah said, we ran into the security issue of cart captioning because it's a live person. We have it here today. And they were like, well, they're going to know all this stuff about the company and that's a security issue. And so it just became one thing on top of another. And I just said, while you're all dealing with this, I still have no idea what is going on in these meetings. I still have no idea what is happening each day or if there's anything I need to take away from it. So I'm living through complications of like no communication. And one thing led to another. I won't get into the weeds of it, but they eventually got cart captioning. As with cart captioning, you need to give all the information about what is discussed. These people didn't know about cybersecurity at the time, and so they needed to learn these definitions and these terminologies to help them be able to type what was being talked about, but also be able to convey the information to me. So um, cart captions worked, and I only had them for a couple of months, maybe even a year before they were taken away. And then I got forced to rely on AI captions. That's my story.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing that, Kat. A lot of support for you in the chat. A lot of people, your story resonating with a lot of people. I'll throw it over to Paul, who I believe is inputting a response in the chat here. And I also just wanted to share that Pamela in the chat said that at their organization, they keep extra software licenses for tools like Dragon so they can provide it quickly. So that's really great for anyone on the call who is in an organization that can offer something like that. That's really great. And maybe I could have a job there as well, Pamela. Okay, so Paul's response is there, I believe.
Okay, hi. So yeah, this is Nathan speaking for Paul. I have a perfect example of how AI can be both bad and good. A few years ago, when COVID first hit, virtual platforms were still new, and so was AI/CC. It was often unreliable, full of errors, missing words and spaces. It was tough remoting at that time. At my last job, we had last minute meetings with management about supply chain issues across the US. They could last anywhere from 15 minutes to over an hour, often last minute. As a deaf person, getting an interpreter on such short notice wasn't possible. I depended on AI/CC, but they weren't accurate enough for me to catch everything. After each meeting, I'd ask for follow-ups or summaries, but that was seen as a problem. Eventually, I was let go because I didn't have all the information I needed. The truth is, I was never given equal access to it. It's like a carpenter not having a hammer to do his job, but given a shoe to mashing nails all day. Oh, sorry, and more. Fast forward to today, AI/CC has come a long way, but still not perfect. The addition of transcript has made a huge difference for accessibility and inclusion in my work. In my most recent HRTA role in a communication heavy field, these tools help me thrive. Most of the time, no one in the company knew I was deaf until I got an urgent phone call from EEs and I had to hang up. HA, of course, I sent them an instant message explaining why. Technology and AI are powerful tools for inclusion, but when they fail, it's not the disabled person who needs to adapt. It's the system and its leaders who need a backup plan or have empathy to seek to understand the why. Please do not give up on the disabled EE so quickly and dismiss them if sorry, if solutions can't be found. There are always solutions, always. Thank you for that, Paul.
Noah talking here. And yeah, I think that's such a good point, Paul. And I really hope everyone is taking these stories in because I hear these so often. And so for me, I have a bit of a I'm not surprised reaction, but I hope for a lot of other people, maybe you're seeing how much these can impact people, especially as we do things like return to office. I want to jump a little bit. So I want to ask a question to Jen. So Jen is speaking a bit from a manager perspective and Paul, Kat, myself more from an employee perspective. So really, I want to know from Jen is what are the biggest challenges to meeting some of those accessibility needs for people on your team?
Yeah. And I could go on for this about a long time, but I don't want to take up too much time. But some of the biggest challenges I see in a succinct way are navigating the systems and policies to get the flexibility people need. So a lot of the systems and policies in most large places tend to be this one size fits most, and they're reducing risk, but only from one perspective. So that's what really makes it problematic. And there's all these gray areas where where a manager has discretion to talk about, quote, performance or responsiveness without getting to having some hard conversations and talking about like, hey, I hired this employee to do this job. Do they have the experience? And what am I doing to give them the tools they need to succeed? As a manager, that is my role, to help them succeed and remove barriers. And I do the same if it was a new parent, if it was somebody who maybe is a night owl, or I know that somebody's like a super productive person during certain hours of the day. I might say, like, hey, let's not schedule meetings then. It's this flexibility that we give to anybody that needs an adjustment just because we're human. So they tend to be pulled out and othered for accessibility when it's just a matter of giving people what they need to do their job well. And they got hired because they have the experience to do it.
Completely agree. And I know we're running a little bit on time, so Greer, just cut us off if needed. I did want to get, not all of us are lucky enough to have Jen as our manager. So I want to turn it over to Paul and Kat and ask them, as an employee, what can your manager or HR do to better support you, especially in a situation where maybe you're not able to get everything that you need, or how can people help? And let's start with Paul, and then we'll go to Kat. Sure. If Kat, if you wanted to,
You want me to go first?
yeah, if you don't mind going first.
Yeah, I don't mind at all. This is Kat speaking. Um, so one of the just main things I really wanted to talk about on this question was that I've personally experienced managers trying to persuade me not to request accommodations, and I can tell you it's incredibly disheartening. So if you're a manager, please don't do that. It creates this fear, and it kind of just melts away this whole trust that I had with a manager in the first place. And it makes me feel like I'm an inconvenience, like a problem. And I just don't think that's the way to do it. So even if you, as a manager or HR, can't give me everything or can't give it to me right away, and it's going to take some time, communication, follow through makes a big difference. Listen, validate, keep me in the loop. Don't leave me wondering and build up my anxiety. But offer me temporary such solutions. There's small adjustments like flexibility with timing or using alternative tools and things that don't even cost money that you could be doing to help me during the time. So ultimately, it's accessibility should never be a compromise. There should be no compromise around this, but figuring out a way to help me in the interim is vital. Thank you.
Yeah, like that. Noah speaking here. I especially like what you say about the burden piece. And I think that what some managers might not understand is sometimes you have to be a little bit proactive. It's great if you're really helpful when someone comes to you, but it's even better if you actually ask people, like, or you even notice things like, hey, would this help you? Or is there anything else you need? Because it can be a lot to always be every day asking for things that you need or feeling like you're inconveniencing people. And when someone actually comes up to you and asks, what can I do to help? That makes a really, really big difference. So that's something that I think a lot of people might not be aware of, but it makes such an enormous difference. Even if there are things available, people might not be aware or might not be willing to ask. I just wanted to throw it back to Paul. I've kind of lost myself in the chat here, but did you want to add anything there, Paul?
Uh, I, I put in the chat fast.
Okay.
Oh,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
you did
This,
put.
yep.
Okay.
This is Nathan. I will read for Raw. They need to remember, for me as a deaf person, it is hard to access information when words are floating in the air and it is not captured visually for me. If something does not work with us to look for a different plan, a backup. Example, if transcript is down, provide me an email detail or meet with me one-on-one after meetings to go over important things. Remember, if we do not see it, we have no idea. Do not punish us if we miss out on information. In office roles, hearing people have this much information, 80-20 example, deaf people can get this much. How do we work together to get this missing information that would help us with our work? Patients, don't give up and don't penalize. I love that. Well, and remotely, it is a bit different because I can get more information from AICC and chat box conversation and transcripts. So I have way more words to see, which helps me with my job. We need to work together, have grace, patience. I may not get it. Need to remember, for me as a deaf person, it is hard to access information when words are floating. Well, yeah, I think it's gonna repeat. Yeah, I think it's a repeat of what. So yeah, and I'll leave to Noah to close up. Thank you.
Totally agree, Paul. And unfortunately, we had a lot more questions that we wanted to get to, but as always, time is tight. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Roger, you are muted. Could you unmute and translate for us? Paul, go ahead and type that into the box if you don't mind. Yeah, he can't. Roger can't type. Yeah, Paul, if you want to go ahead and type that into the box, that would be great. Okay, Noah, if you want to close us out.
Yeah, I mean, I joined this panel just because workplace accessibility is so important to me because I acquired a disability as an adult and I saw my experience working without a disability and how it changed when I acquired one. And I know that my knowledge or my experience wasn't any less valuable when I had a disability, but my ability to contribute to the workplace was greatly diminished. And I could only imagine how many more other people out there who are very qualified and looking for opportunities and are able to help and able to contribute other types of experience who are just being left behind because we don't have workplaces that are flexible enough and we don't have structures that allow different people to contribute. So it's something that I'm just super passionate about helping. And I hope that hearing some of these stories and hearing from people and, the things that would have helped them, I hope that you can take some of this back to your organizations and maybe make a few adaptations. I think sometimes accessibility can feel daunting, but it really is just about doing a little bit here and there. And anybody, you don't need a special knowledge, anybody in an organization pushing for accessibility, that's what we need to really make a change. So I hope this conversation has done a little bit to nudge people in that direction. So I appreciate everyone taking the time to join today. We'll go through the chat and see if there's anything else that's missing, but feel free to connect with any of us on LinkedIn. And yeah, it was great having all of you. And it's been great working through this webinar together with all of you, Paul, Kat, Nathan, Jen. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, team. I took so much away. I could have listened to you all talk for another, I don't know, 3 hours. So something tells me that maybe we will do some follow-ups with this group so that we can keep this conversation going. So thank you everybody for your time here. I personally learned a lot and I can only guarantee that other people in the room did as well. So we are going to jump straight into